told us in London that, time is very much an ideological device. It often legitimates present changes in the past. But also another writer that influenced me, Simon Abrams, argued that planning is a deeply temporal activity because it's not only a tool to manage the present and governing and organizing the relationship between the state, the citizen, and other organizations, the private, the public, but planning always involves a transition over time from the present states, the current to future imagined ones. So, while the temporal logic of capitalist cities is linked to financial capital and movement, and David Harvey, talks a lot about that, Isaac Marrero, again in London, argued that stagnation of urban development also might open new times and new developments. So he was talking about Hackney Wick, an area in London where, because the redevelopment has stagnated, local activists have taken over a space and are developing new temporalities there. And I think we will hear a bit more about El Raval in particular from Miguel Fernandez. So there might be the creation of different temporalities, within regeneration projects as well. And how do they question and maybe challenge then, the neoliberal process? So preparing for this workshop, I just started to draw to draw up a list of different temporalities that might be, worth thinking about, and I just want to share a few, and I hope there will be more coming out today. So I really asked myself, what does a temporal perspective add to the study, implementation, and experience of urban transformation? So, these are randomly ordered thoughts that I've had, but of course, like Barbara Adams always tells us, time is a social institution. It shapes the beliefs and ideologies of people. It is deeply ideological, but it's also a way of controlling our social life. Time structures people's emotional relationships in terms of a sense of place. And I'm struggling with that one because I think in the literature there's this idea often that we need to be for a long time somewhere to develop place attachments. But in our global world, which I'm part of, I guess, the global citizen that lives 5 years New York, 5 years London, 5 years Paris, does that mean they don't have an attachment because they're transient? I don't believe that. I think, you have different types of attachment you develop. So this kind of Western thinking of linear, chronological, self that creates a narrative, I think needs to be challenged also much more, and that there may be different intensities of temporal relations that develop different attachments of place that are equally strong as, the permanent resident somewhere. And I think that'd be interesting to think about in terms of tourism, the hot topic in Barcelona. I'll say that, and I bet a lot of people will disagree with me, but I have a bit of an issue with this notion they don't care. I mean, putting everybody in one pot about saying tourism doesn't care. I think tourists can have attachments to the places they visit. It's not just I don't care attitude, and we need to disentangle that in much more detail. Then I thought another issue why we need to think about the temporal is that economic and political times sequence, the local, what happens in the local, whether it's financial crisis, whether it's migration flows, all that influence the local temporality as well. And then temporal considerations like changing political mandates, deadlines, financial years that I hope Carmen and Ewan will tell us, they all influence also the decision making in the planning of the city. So I have a few more, but I'll wrap up now. So I think for me it's really important that different relationships to time organize and perpetuate urban inequalities. And maybe that's one of the themes that we could develop later in the workshop a bit more. And that there is a real unevenness of time and temporal relations, like I said, whose times are prioritized in the built environment, but also in urban policy. And I want to hear your thoughts on that. So the aim of the workshop here in Raval is to really focus on the radical physical, social transformation this neighborhood has experienced in the last 25 years. And I just suggest let's start looking at time and at temporal relations within that. So I've asked Abdulmalik Simone to start us with some reflections on what happens on the ground in other cities of the planet. And similarly, I've asked also Ewan Mills from who worked at the GLA in London, and Carmen Gual, who works here at the Ayuntament, to reflect what insights they can deliver on how to plan with the temporal in mind this, this experience. And David Bravo, I hope, will also talk a bit about public spaces, and especially the Walkeria market, tourism and time. And I'm really trying to bring very different perspectives together to start thinking, a starting point to think about the temporal. So, yeah, it's just interesting for me how different disciplines, different urban practitioners, academics, practitioners talk also a very different language of time. And I think that will come out from the talks. So I learned that yesterday, this English expression, with no further ado, with no further ado, I want to introduce Abdulmalik Simone, who I'm very honored, Miquel Fernandez first. Yeah. First, Miquel Fernandez, who will talk a bit more about the Raval in Spanish, and will do a bit of translation at the end as well. And then I will introduce Malik Simone in the next 10 minutes as well. Thank you.
Reflexión a partir de mi trabajo etnográfico, historiográfico sobre el Raval, concretamente sobre la calle de Enrubador. Son simplemente una reflexión general y tres ideas algo más concretas. Esta reflexión la he hecho a partir de este trabajo, como digo, historiográfico y etnográfico, y a partir también de una analogía que Mónica Degen propone en su último artículo con la tríada espacial de Henri Lefebvre. Y esto lo he titulado Recuerdos del futuro. Los historiadores aspiran a comprender el presente relatando e interpretando el pasado. Parafraseando este tópico, del oficio de historiador, podríamos decir que los sociólogos, en cambio, nos interesamos por el futuro para conocer nuestro presente. Los sociólogos podemos dejar constancia y recordar qué futuro se imaginaba, qué futuro imaginábamos juntos. Podríamos decir que los sociólogos tenemos el deber de recoger los futuros que se imaginaron, los futuros que, partiendo de una lectura benjaminiana de la historia, siguiendo las enseñanzas de la tradición de los oprimidos, y es que estos futuros imaginados de parte de esta población que viven en perpetuo estado de excepción, una excepción que nos expropia la capacidad de habitar el mundo y de soñar un futuro. Bien, en este sentido, lo que sabemos, por ejemplo, del barrio chino es que debía tener ya los días contados desde el mismo momento en que se bautizó. ¿Sí?
What Miquel is trying to argue is that sociologists think a lot about the future imaginaries, and especially he thinks it's really important to think about what kind of future imaginaries they talk about when they talk about people being expropriated and leaving a neighborhood. What happens to them?
Thank you. Lo que sabemos del barrio chino es que debía tener estos días contados desde el momento en que se bautizó con un epítome tan infamante, teniendo en cuenta además que jamás vivió población china significativa. En la calle de Enrubador aún hoy se puede escuchar expresiones del tipo «esto ya no es el barrio chino», una fórmula que a veces evoca nostalgia de una época dorada, de la calle en la que las prostitutas dispensaban amor, no eran supervisadas por macarras, había mucha unión entre vecinos y trabajadores de cualquier tipo. O también como expresiones de orgullo, cuando se producía una manifestación o un enfrentamiento contra la policía. Depende de cómo acabara la situación, se exclamaba, esto siempre será el barrio chino, o se lamentaban, esto nunca dejará de ser el barrio chino.
So Miquel's book was called To Kill the Barrio Chino, which is the south of the neighborhood here, and the main Barcelona, and he says how residents there have adopted this kind of mythical past of this and are defending that this is not anymore the red light district, the Barrio Chino, which they felt proud of because, you know, it was part of the myth that there was a community there, that street sex workers were dispensing love and caring, etc.
Thank you. En este sentido, hoy parece sorprendente el hecho que cuando se inicia la gran transformación a mediados de los 80 en el Raval, nadie esperaba, nadie se imaginaba ni la fuerte llegada de la nueva migración internacional, ni la relevancia que iba a tomar para la nueva industria que se esperaba determinante, la industria terciaria, el auge insostenible que está teniendo el turismo en la actualidad. En este sentido, planificadores, proyectistas o políticos erraron en gran medida sus planes. Su tiempo era siguiendo la tríada lebrefiana que propone Degen en su caso sobre el tiempo planificado. Y este tiempo planificado es el que esta es la primera idea que quiero lanzar o compartir, es la idea del tiempo planificado, los futuros abiertos como esperanza, los cerrados como trampa.
So nobody expected in the red light district and with the regeneration of El Raval in the 1980s that what would happen next, namely the unexpected flow of migration from outside Europe. That means that now it's around 50% of migrant population and 50% Spanish Catalan, and also the huge impact tourism would have on this neighborhood. And he wants to draw on one of my propositions of the drawing on Lefebvre about planned time, and he wants to now talk about what kind of futures were imagined in the past for this neighborhood now.
Esta primera reflexión, los futuros abiertos como esperanza, los cerrados como trampa. Un primer apunte sobre esta cuestión. En general, entre los usuarios tradicionales, vecinos y trabajadoras de la calle, se contemplaba con ambivalencia, recelo y esperanza las grandes transformaciones de la zona.